Hello, I'm the non-qualified evangelist. This is the NQE episode number 18. Previously, we are looking at Joseph. We learned about Potiphar. Joseph is a tremendous administrator. He makes this guy super crazy rich, and the guy sees it. He says, you know what, Joseph, the place is yours. The wife would like to have a little piece of this action too, but Joseph says no. So the wife very angrily figures a way to convince the husband that the best place for this guy who has done so many amazing things for him is actually in prison. Husband agrees. Boom, Joseph is in prison. While there, he is able to replicate the success. So the prison warden does exactly what Potiphar does before. He says, you know what? The whole thing is yours. Run it. Joseph comes across these servants to Pharaoh who did whatever they did to anger Pharaoh. So they have these dreams, and these are mega dreams. Joseph interprets these dreams. He says, you're going to die, you're going to live. And to the guy who's going to live, he says, please tell Pharaoh, I don't belong here. Get me out. It doesn't work out. One forgets. The other one is dead. So he just sort of lingers. And that's where that story ends. In this episode of the NQE, we are going to cover Genesis 41 and 42. Let's pray first. Father, this is really so cool. Thank you for giving us this book. Thank you for giving us this platform to do something so cool. Bless this so that it is the way you would want for it to be. Amen. Genesis 41. It happened at the end of 2 years to the day Pharaoh was dreaming that, behold, he was standing over the river when, behold, out of the river there emerged 7 cows of beautiful appearance and robust flesh, and they were grazing in the marshland. Then, behold, 7 other cows emerged after them out of the river, of ugly appearance and gaunt flesh. And they stood next to the cows on the bank of the river. The cows of the ugly appearance and gaunt flesh ate the 7 cows of beautiful appearance and robust. And Pharaoh awoke. He fell asleep and dreamt a second time. And behold, 7 ears of grain were sprouting on a single stalk, healthy and good. And behold, 7 ears, thin and scorched by the east wind, were growing after them. Then the thin ears swallowed up the 7 healthy and full ears. Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it had been a dream. And it was in the morning. His spirit was agitated. So he sent and summoned all the necromancers of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh related his dream to them, but none could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the Chamberlain of the Cupbearers spoke up before Pharaoh. My transgressions do I mention today. Pharaoh had become incensed at his servants and placed me in the ward of the house of the Chamberlain of the butchers, me and the Chamberlain of the bakers. We dreamt a dream on the same night, I and he. Each one according to the interpretation of his dream did we dream. And there with us was a Hebrew youth, a slave of the Chamberlain of the butchers. We related it to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. He interpreted for each in accordance with his dream. And it was that just as he interpreted for us, so did it happen. Me he restored to my post, and him he hanged. So Pharaoh sent and summoned Joseph, and they rushed him from the dungeon. He shaved and changed his clothes, and he came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I dreamt a dream, but no one can interpret it. Now, I heard it said of you that you comprehend a dream to interpret it. Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, that is beyond me. It is God who will respond with Pharaoh's welfare. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, in my dream, behold, I was standing upon the bank of the river, and behold, out of the river there emerged 7 cows, of robust flesh and beautiful form, and they were grazing in the marshland. Suddenly, 7 other cows emerged after them, scrawny and of very inferior form and of emaciated flesh. I've never seen inferiority like theirs in all the land of Egypt. And the emaciated and inferior cows ate up the first 7 healthy cows. They came inside them, but it was not apparent that they had come inside them, for their appearance remained as inferior as the first. Then I awoke. I then saw in my dream, behold, 7 ears of grain were sprouting on a single stalk, full and good. And suddenly, 7 ears of grain, withered and thin, and scorched by the east wind, were growing after them. Then the thin ears of grain swallowed up the 7 good ears. I said this to the necromancers, but no one could explain it to me. Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is a single one. What God is about to do, he has told to Pharaoh. The 7 good cows, they are 7 years. And the 7 good ears, they are 7 years. It is a single dream. Now, the 7 emaciated and bad cows who emerged after them, they are 7 years, as are the 7 emaciated ears scorched by the east wind. There shall be 7 years of famine. It is this matter that I have spoken to Pharaoh. What God is about to do, he has shown to Pharaoh. Behold, 7 years are coming, a great abundance throughout all the land of Egypt. Then 7 years of famine will arise after them, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will ravage the land, and the abundance will be unknown in the land in the face of the subsequent famine, for it will be terribly severe. As for the repetition of the dream to Pharaoh 2 times, it is because the matter stands ready before God, and God is hastening to accomplish it. Now let Pharaoh seek out a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh proceed, and let him appoint overseers on the land. And he shall prepare the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. And let them gather all the food of those approaching good years. Let them amass grain under Pharaoh's authority for food in the cities, and safeguard it. The food will be a reserve for the land against the 7 years of famine, which will befall the land of Egypt, so that the land will not perish in the famine. The matter appeared good in Pharaoh's eyes, and in the eyes of all his servants. Pharaoh said to his servants, "Could we find another like him, a man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has informed you of all this, there can be no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and by your command shall all my people be sustained. Only by the throne shall I outrank you." Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "See, I have placed you in charge of all the land of Egypt." And Pharaoh removed his ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. He then had him dressed in garments of fine linen, and he placed a gold chain upon his neck. He also had him ride in his second royal chariot, and they proclaimed before him, "Avrek." Thus he appointed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and without you no man may lift up his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphenath-Paneah, and he gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, chief of On, for a wife. Thus Joseph emerged in charge of the land of Egypt. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, and he passed through the entire land of Egypt. The earth produced during the 7 years of abundance by the handfuls. He gathered all food of the 7 years that came to pass in the land of Egypt, and he placed food in the cities. The food of the field around each city he placed within it. Joseph amassed grain like the sand of the sea in great abundance until he ceased counting, for there was no number. Now to Joseph were born 2 sons, when the year of the famine had not yet set in, whom Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, chief of On, bore to him. Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for God has made me forget all my hardship and all my father's household. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for God has made me fruitful in the land of my suffering. The 7 years of abundance that came to pass in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began approaching, just as Joseph had said. There was famine in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. When all the land of Egypt hungered, the people cried out to Pharaoh for bread. So Pharaoh said to all of Egypt, "Go to Joseph. Whatever he tells you, you should do." When the famine spread over all the face of the earth, Joseph opened all the containers and sold provisions to Egypt. And the famine became severe in the land of Egypt. All the earth came to Egypt, to Joseph, to buy provisions, for the famine had become severe in all the earth. Okay then, that was Genesis 41. Yes, it was. Here's what we're looking at. Pharaoh has a pair of dreams. These are some crazy dreams. A cow eats a cow, and then a stalk eats another stalk, and all of the magicians and all the people or whatever in Egypt doing whatever it is that they do, they don't have the slightest clue what this dream means. At this moment, this is 2 years later, the Chamberlain of the Cupbearers, he's like, "Oh my gosh, Pharaoh, remember that time you went in jail with the other guy? Here's the deal. There was this kid, this Hebrew, he was a slave. He was absolutely spot on the dreams." Pharaoh says, "Get him." So they make sure that they clean this guy up first, but they get Joseph. They bring him to Pharaoh. They sit down. Pharaoh says, "I understand you know how to do these dreams." And again, Joseph says, Dreams belong to God, but we are on a first name basis. Why don't you go ahead and talk to me and then I can do the interpretation for you? It's insane. And he's doing this as a Hebrew slave right in front of Pharaoh. This guy has guts. So consider this dream for a second. So he's agitated by this dream. Oh my gosh, this is a bad dream. Bring me the Hebrew slave. That's how agitated I am. Then, yes, I'm going to listen to you, Hebrew slave. And now what you say makes total sense. Why don't you do all of it? He says, here's my ring. You're number 2. The throne is the only thing that outranks you. I'm going to call you this name. And the name is Zaphenath Paneah. And that means the man to whom mysteries are revealed. Joseph is 30 years old. The Egyptians, when he's in the special chariot and he's driving through Main Street, Egypt, and everybody's looking at Pharaoh and they're looking at this guy behind him whose Pharaoh is saying, this guy's number 2. Yes, I know he's a Hebrew. He's number 2 anyway. These people, they say Avrek. Now, this means that these people recognize that to this man, they should kneel. At this point, you have to say, okay, it was a good thing that Joseph was hated by his brothers. It was a good thing that he was sold to the Ishmaelites. It was a good thing that he was in Potiphar's house. It was a wonderful thing that the wife was a crazy person. It was a great thing that he went to jail. It was good that Pharaoh got angry with the baker. It was good that they had a dream, blah, 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 ticka, 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 boom, all the way to, hey, you know what, Joseph, you're Viceroy of Egypt. Yeah, that's number 2. Mm-hmm. Looking good for this guy. This is the end of the story. NQE 19 is coming. Thank you for watching. The NQE is out.